Hey guys, today we're going to be working on setting the body gaps on this 1958 Chevy Cameo pickup truck. Now back in the day when trucks were seen more as a utilitarian vehicle, a workhorse, when Chevrolet came out with this, it revolutionized the whole truck industry. With the beautiful flowing lines of the style side box, it really upped the game in styling for pickup trucks. Right now, this truck doesn't look like much, but when the owner is going to be done with it, it's going to look like a beautiful gem. He brought this truck here for us to help him out with the body gaps. As many of you know who have tried to set gaps, it can be very frustrating. From what I'm told, the cab on this truck was really rough. So the owner decided to purchase an aftermarket one, came in from Taiwan, already assembled, along with the hood and replacement fenders. And these fenders, the ones that came in, and the hood fit so poorly to each other that he decided to run with original sheet metal. It has a number of dings and dents, but overall there's no rust, which is fine. We can fix dents, we can fix dings. Gaps, on the other hand, can be really tricky. For those of you who have played with setting body gaps, you've discovered in most cases that it can be extremely frustrating, extremely tricky to get everything lining up. And in this case, there's a lot going on. Let's go for a walk around. I'll show you what's happening, and then we'll get into this and try to figure out a plan to get things right. Now, right off the bat, I'll show you a few things happening with the fenders. A couple dings, dents, things like that. And that's to be expected. This was a workhorse. There's a big crease right through here. So those, like I mentioned, can be worked out. We have access from the back, not a problem. When we get into areas like this is where things get really tricky. I'm not even going to talk about this. Look at the door. It starts off here about ½ an inch, tightens up, and then the door actually sticks out. The top of the window sticks out past this pillar here. You see this gap up in here? It's huge. And then it tightens up, tightens up, tightens up. Now the owner did do some work on it. He's preparing the chrome strips on here. That's why these holes are drilled. This didn't come this way. But he's tried to align, and he's done a very good job at getting the doors to align, the feature lines of the doors to align to the cab itself. See here? It's quite nice. Then we get into this feature here. The door has a fairly crisp line, and then it just disappears. We're going to have to recreate that. Something like this isn't that big of a deal. You might think, oh boy, how do you do that? But we'll get into that. What we're going to be looking at is stuff like this. You probably see here, the cab actually dives in, and then the door comes out. It's brutal. Let's get a straight edge on that. We're bumping into the door. What is that, 3/8 of an inch? Now you see, just push the door in. Well, the problem with that is this won't line up here anymore. These features won't line up. Let's say we push that in. Now we've got a huge V happening in there. Now some would fill that with filler. The first time you bump the edge of the door or the jamb, it's going to most likely fall off. We need to go around and analyze every single square inch of what's happening here. Gap here, that's actually the gap you want to try to get to. About 1/4 inch, heavy quarter, not really, about 1/4 inch. By the time you add your primers and paint and everything, that'll close up to about 3/16. As we come down here, right at the peak, things get very tight. And the door appears to be a little bit lower, 1/4 inch lower, than the fender feature. Up front here, we've got the same thing happening where the fender is in, so we might have to bring the fender out. And then there's some stuff happening down here where this sill panel is actually sticking out past. Not sure what's going on, have to go underneath and see. The gap tightens up at the bottom here. Driver's side, a lot of the same stuff happening here. Let's close this door. Again, top of the door lines up really well, the feature, really nice. But then we look in the space above the door, and it's like 3/4 of an inch. It's monstrous. And feeling in here, these doors have a seal around the perimeter. You'll never fit a seal in behind there. This is actually hitting the body itself. So that has to be pulled out. and a space created for the door seal. Gap not too bad, opens up, and the cab's actually sticking out, or the door is actually sticking out past the windshield post. So all that has, if we pull the top out here, that'll make this worse. So we need to see why that's happening. This gap here, he started working on it, ground it back a little bit, and it's actually exposed the hem. So you have the door skin that rolls around the back of the structure, and he's now opened that up. And sometimes you don't have a choice, because what are you going to do? You're going to cut the cowl, which then will throw the line for the fender. So it's something, again, we have to maybe adjust, maybe move the door back. We don't want to do that too much, because then that'll open up this gap here. Space back here, the passenger side is actually better. Back here, it's quite large. We're, I don't know, 5/16, 3/8 of an inch in places. But then it binds up here, gets less than a quarter. So from just under 3/8 to a quarter, and then it really opens up as we move down. And then again, the sill has to be corrected because it's been pulled out. Front fender, the door is actually in too much. So we have to find out why that happened. It seems as though the door itself has been bent down. There's a big dent in here. If I catch a reflection, it's almost impossible because it's flat paint. Right in here, there's a huge low spot. Before we go correcting that, we have to find out why this edge of the door dives in, this edge here, dives in so much. Back here, we flush up this feature here. The door is in too far at the bottom. So some would say, well, just bring the flange outward. You bring the flange outward, it's going to create a dish in the door and really make this dish worse, this little dent here. So I'm going through this really quick with you guys just to show you what's, what we have to work with. Inside the cab, he's done some work there. Now, he got caught in one heck of a blizzard bringing this pickup to us. An open trailer. Once he got onto the road, things just turned from bad to worse for him. But he got here safely, and that's what counts. If you look at this gap here, we have, what is that, 3/16. So this should actually come in a little bit tighter, but this curvature doesn't match the curvature of the cowl. This gap back here, I haven't latched the hood, but we're actually binding on the passenger side. Sorry, I'm gonna put this down. We're actually binding on, that's your best friend when you're checking gaps. Because sometimes the eye doesn't pick everything up, and that'll really help you in terms of checking levels. If you go to focus, see the edge of the fender is out, there's a gap at the front, focus. The very edge of the door is out, then we have a dish, and then we have it contacting with the main door panel. The camera doesn't like the reflections too much. So once we figure out what's happening with the doors, and main thing is to set the doors to the cab, then we can look at the front fenders. So to start off with, I'm going to pull that visor off, as well as pull the latch for the hood. Because right now it's sitting down the latch, and if I latch the latch, it actually pulls the hood one way or the other. And I don't want to be fighting that. So we're going to take that off so we can open and close the hood freely. So as you can see, we've got a bit of spring in the hood. It doesn't want to go down all the way. We're binding back here. We've got a monstrous gap here. Stick my finger in there, and it gets worse as we go over here. But there's no point in setting the hood to anything, because this is the crucial part. It has to line up first. Get your doors on, get them lined up. Right, the amount of space we have on this side at the top, if the whole cab leaned over, then the top portion came this way, then we'd have enough space here and the perfect amount here. The windshield has been fitted, so we can't start jacking the roof over because that's going to mess things up. So we're going to have to make our adjustments on the door. both sides. Now before we get into setting the latch, I'm going to show you something. The width for the seal, quite nice up and through here, widens out well here, but then as we come down, it really gets narrow. This corner has to come out. If we take out these spot welds and bring it out, we still have the same problem of very narrow area for the seal. So what I'll end up doing is cutting this down through here and bringing this out, and then inserting a wedge all the way down. And that'll help us with the width. Now I'm not going to cut it on the very edge. I'm going to step in a little bit. It'll help in finishing this area. Now there's nothing wrong with this corner. I don't want to disturb it. I just want to be able to bring it out so that it matches with the curvature of the door. This is much flatter here, so we do have to bring it out. And once the latch is set, this is sticking out way too far. If I push it in, I'm not sure exactly where it's going to be until we line up our features here. That's the biggest key. That feature and that feature, they have to be perfect. Horizontally, this way, they're great. In and out, we have to make sure that they line up there and there. When it comes to this kind of stuff, there are so many variables to think about. Now, I don't want to loosen this latch off totally, just a little bit, so I can take my mallet and tap that in, or a block of wood with a hammer, and move that in. Hopefully we have enough room, it looks to be, we have enough room so we can pull this door in, doesn't come out, and it lines up well there. I like using a piece of hardwood to move things around. So that the tension of the latch doesn't pull my strike in, I just kind of release the latch, let it freewheel like that, and then bring it in. And I would say that's bang on there, bang on there. Bring you guys in. Just so you know what I mean by bang on. Check out that right there. It flows perfectly. Here, not so much. This feature here, perfectly. So we are going to lock the latch in. Let's see how that looks right there. Yeah. That's not too bad at all. We're going to lock the latch in at that point. Now feeling this through here, the cab, here, and where this handle attaches, this curve is actually too much. It doesn't match this here. So what we're going to do is adjust it a little bit. But we're not going to hammer with the door in the closed position. We're going to open it, and I'll just use a slapper and bring it down. Just a little bit. Not much, just a smidge. Okay, already we've improved a lot in this area as well. At the bottom, different story. Now, before we get into cutting anything down here, that's the game plan, to cut this and move it out. I want to fit the rest of the door, get it as close as possible, and even bring that front fender in, work on that sheet metal. You're going to be jumping around different areas. This feature has to be created, and that's coming in, catching on the door, coming in a lot more, and it obviously gets worse down there. But if we take and bring that feature out with a dolly, get dolly from behind, drive it out, with the door open probably, be the best way to get in there. Sharpen up this feature, this will help bring this panel out a little bit as well. I don't want to fix this, get it lined up nice, and then bring the feature out, create that crease, is what I was trying to say, and have this come out further, then you end up cutting it and moving it all back in. You'll be chasing your tail. Now, just looking at this, there's gap here and gap here. It gets a little bit tight here. We'll work that out. I want, like I mentioned earlier in the beginning, a heavy 3/16 to 1/4 inch, so that when we're all finally done, or he's done with the paint and everything, it's going to have nice consistent 3/16 gaps. My slapper or spoon, the end of it is about 3/16 heavy. So as you saw me driving down, see the space there? It actually, we're gapping it to the spoon. So using the micrometer, this is a heavy 3/16 up here, and it gets down to 3/16 here. In between is just over a 1/4 inch. In this area, it's actually loose. So we have to bring this material inward. And we can add to the door, but the door has a nice line going up. The cab is actually dished back, and then it's nice all the way down. So if we can move this metal inward, tighten that gap up, I think we can get away without having to weld any rods or cut or anything with that sheet metal in that spot. Right there, see that? It's coming out. Very awkward to get in there. But as you can see, we're making great progress. That's come back out, looking really good. So now I've got the feature created, the crease. Now I have to blend it into the body. We're about 95% of the way there. Little low spot there, we'll have to address that. By pulling this material out, this has to be stretched a little bit because it's pulling. It's a very slight concave there.
It's not too bad. Like I said, we're low there.
Looking at the top of this door, we can see the feature is lining up perfectly. This drip rail is actually climbing almost, I don't know, 5/8 of an inch. I can stick my finger in there, and then it comes back in to a more reasonable amount. It's still a little bit open. If you look from the end, this door is actually sticking out. So if you had a seal in here, it would never seal because the water just, or wind or whatever, just go past it. So the top of this door actually has to go in. Back here, it's right on. We have to give this a very slight, gentle twist. Now I don't mean much. So need that to go in, right? Yeah. Still lines up, and we are now half what we were earlier. Let's open this a bit more. If you think I'm doing this wrong and I'm butchering the truck, if I remember, and if I can find it again, I've got a manual for that Chrysler Windsor that we built, the 300i, factory manual. I should show you some of the jigs that they give shops to tweak doors, painted doors, finished doors. Like a door might not be closing 100%. It'll blow your mind to see how they tweak doors, the apparatus, the jigs they had that would clamp onto a door and twist the main structure of the door in such a way that it would close properly. They used to have bumper bars, a chain with a hook. You clamp onto your bumper and you twist that bumper, chrome, nice bumper, twist it back into shape. So what we're doing here is pretty tame. We are getting better. I'm just keeping an eye on this gap here. This is nice. This top still has to come in. I can't just tip the top here and bend that. It has to be a gentle twist. If it takes me 5 times to do it, just gotta make sure I don't slip and catch my fingers in there. This thing called spring back too, so I'm moving it and it kind of comes back. So you have to go past. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I think one more time will do it. Okay. Now we're in here, and it's just about right there. So that has to come out, that has to go in. If we just do this, walk into the corner, so this is lining up perfectly all the way through. Come along to the front, and we can see, well, first off, the gap that we had there that was quite large has now tightened up because now we're in where it has to be. Consistent all the way down until we get to there. Not going to look at that yet. And if we look from the end, it aligns right there with the A-pillar of the windshield. That's now set. That is nice. We have to address this top, and it is better. It is much better. That lines up quite well there. So that rolls around, and then it starts climbing. And we were at 5/8. I can barely stick my finger in, so we're down about half. And then we'll have to clean up this edge. It's kind of wavy, but given what I'm about to do, it's going to get much more wavy. Okay, so we've gently massaged that drip rail, the inner edge, downward to meet the door. Didn't create any buckles on the inside, it's very smooth, didn't distort the surface, just pulled things down. Now this material, we're gonna have to address it. We can't leave those waves like that. And once we clean that up, we may have to touch it up one more time, but as you see, or as you can see, we're getting a very consistent gap all the way around. A little tighter there, a little tight there. So we can actually bring the top down just a little bit more. So before this gets out of hand up here, let's clean that up and then give it one more pass. Primer peeling off the body of the sheet metal. It's cracked. So there we have it. Nice, consistent gap all the way around. And in the top here, see that? Nice, smooth drip rail in there, all the way down. So any loose paint, we'll just clean it up, dress it, and that should be it. Okay, so this door is just about done from this point all the way to the top, except for a little spot up here. We need to remove that little bit of material, kind of blend it so that the top, has clearance there. We have to grind the paint off of that, strip it off, not grind it. I don't want to grind the metal, just strip the paint off. The front is fitting in really well. We'll have to add a little bit of material to the door to pick it up to this windshield feature line. There's just not quite enough. We can't stretch it. So we'll add a little bit there. That'll be done later on. The gap here is quite consistent and it starts getting tighter and tighter and tighter and tighter. The reason for that, this area right here and this area here. Let's go to the driver's side. So pretty much got the same thing. Gap comes down, around, nice, nice. A little tight to the cowl here, and yet our back gap is perfect. So we may have to finish grinding a little more material off. There's a mark that he made, but you don't want to remove the material until everything else is fitting nice. So down here, we're tight, and then it gets tighter as we go down, which again brings us to the front core support. I don't know if we can do this at the same time, but I can move the entire front core up and down and actually stick my fingers in under here. We need to pick this up, and how much? We're going to go one washer at a time until we have our gap set at the bottom there, consistent to the one at the top. So that's the reason your front nose is diving down, the fenders are diving down at the front, pinching the bottom of the door. Once we've got that established and that bolted in place, I didn't feel any nuts on the bottom of those bolts, so we'll get those bolted down, snug down tight. Then we can finalize the door gaps, door to fender gaps I should say. I guess the other way would work too. We can adjust the curvatures. This curve here, the fender is way out, so there's something going on with the fender itself. I might have to pick the front end up, crawl up underneath and see what's going on. And then we can turn our attention to the hood. See if we can get that to fit. These bolts might end up being too short, we'll see. Wow. So he had some washers in here. Nylon ones, yeah. Let's get this in here. Yeah, what the heck. We gotta go up anyway. Let's get this whole stack in here. We might make our own bushings. We'll see. I'm just going to use a jack, pick up the front here a little bit, so we can get those washers in. Look at that. Nice. And even by lifting here, it corrected the curvature to a degree. Good. Let's go a little higher. Okay, let's take a look. That's very nice. A little tight, but very nice. So starting at the top, we do get tight in the middle, but as we come down, it's very consistent. See that? I like that. So all that means is we pull that fender ahead a little bit, which we can, because it is a little bit past the cowl. Do the same thing over here. Just pick things up. Yeah. Yeah, the fenders actually sucked in. They were bowed out. So, we got some washers here. What's up? Let's see how many washers we need here. I'm not going to snug them up actually just yet, in case we need to shift the front end side to side. So, drop this down. I was going to do it, but I think I'll show you guys. We've got a beautiful gap at the top, and it is exactly where it needs to be. But as it comes down, it's actually opening up too much by the thickness of one washer. So go back, take one washer out. It's a dance back and forth until you hit the sweet spot. And it takes an incredible amount of patience. Okay. Pick it up. You hear it stretching. Okay. Let's take out a thinner one like that one. You can get these in different thicknesses, little spacers, body spacers. But once we have the right spacing, we'll make up the nice blocks for this. All right. Lower it down. Grab you guys. Let's take another look. We can take out one more washer. It's still too big. You know what? I'm gonna leave it there. Just feeling this here. The door actually has to come out or the fender has to go in. If you do one or the other, that might bring it in a little bit tighter, given the curvatures. Make sure our jack is down. And yeah, this fender has to go ahead. And that'll open up the gap consistently all the way through. Yeah, 'cause that's way too tight. By the time you get paint on there, that's gonna chip. Now, out of curiosity, I wanna see how the hood feels. This side's way too high. That hinge has to go down. See that right there? Our gap back here is improved too. We've picked everything up. It's flowing in. Me likey. Now. Okay. I know we're working on door gaps, but at the same time, you gotta kind of be mindful of other areas. See, if the latch was here, we'd be fighting the latch, trying to unlatch, latch. Here we can open and close this without any issues. That's not good. Well, you definitely get your steps in with this type of work. Let's try that. a little better. I gotta see why that's jumping around, which means getting inside. Okay, so I'm bringing the hood down, and it's walking on those teeth. And we're down all the way. You see the teeth have bottomed to maxed out, right there. But I'm trying to pull the hood down. That last little bit. You didn't think I'd get you guys in here. So that's spring. We're fighting that spring. Okay. Right there. We undo that bolt, drop that down. That'll drop the hinge along the front to drop. Oh no. It's ½ inch. I don't have a, oh yes I do, right here. It came up. Right there. Now I gotta put you guys down, unless you guys hold the front there, and just bear with me for a second. Bring that down. Tighten the hinge. Yeah. Okay, just tighten that bolt, and it's sitting where it needs to. Perfect. Okay. So now we can go check and see what it looks like outside. Bring it down, close it, and you can see we're hitting there. We need to move that. No, we can't, because this is perfect all the way through here. We're hitting right there. So we need to do some work on this corner. See that gap there? It's consistent with that bumper. So we're really nice until we get to the back where it opens up. This side, that fender and hood need to be adjusted. This fender on this side needs to come ahead. We're too tight with the door, which will kind of make that worse. We'll have to fix the front of the hood. Maybe it got pushed in. I noticed there are some ripples in here, so it could have been bumped. If we open way up here, too wide. So this hood, this radius is actually really tight, so it has to be opened up as well. This is the aftermarket cab. This is the stuff you have to deal with. Who knows if these were stamped or how many stampings the dies had, and you know, as they stamp, they wear out, so tolerances change. So this level isn't too bad here. Front of the hood is up, so that'll come down. So again, we have the corners to work out, and a little bit of rust repair in here to take care of. So I'm going to get to work and unbolt, or loosen, I should say, loosen this fender, and pull it ahead 1/8 of an inch. That'll fix our gap there, and then we'll get into, I'm not sure yet what. It's kind of a go-by-feel thing. That closes nice. Took a few minutes away from working on body gaps. It's coming along really well, and decided to spend some time, take out some dents in this fender. This was the worst fender of the two. It was all wrinkled up in here. You could see the creases, and it was like that in this area. So that's all been worked out, and what you just saw me using was a tool called a shrinking disc. It's a big stainless steel disc that, as you pass over the sheet metal, it brings up the lows and brings down the highs, normalizes the surface. but you can only do so much with it. I get it as close as I can with a hammer and dolly. I say this is a low spot, so I place the dolly back here, take the slapper or hammer, wide face hammer, and bring that down. Bring that up, bring that down, level it out. And then the shrinking disc takes care of the really small stuff. So as you can see, I still have more work in the front here. Got to fix this crease, got to fix this area here. It's getting there, but it's still a little ways off. And this, where the emblem goes, pretty low. And I thought I'd leave this for us to tackle. Now I've got several videos on dent repair, and if you're curious, to check them out. So we're going to take care of this crease. Now you can see it on camera. I think you can see it. I can see it on this side, so you can see it. And you can definitely feel it. It's down quite a ways, like something fell on the fender. There's a workhorse. Stuff happens, right? I'm going to take and illustrate this crease a little more with a sanding block loaded with a grit. I'm going to pass it over the surface. You can really see what's happening here. It's high there, meaning it came down and that got pushed up. So it seems to have fallen in this kind of direction. I don't know. You got a dent there. So we're going to take and pop that out, smooth it out, and then once we're finished, you'll never know it was there. I'm placing the dolly in behind the crease, using the slapper and tapping the outside. The weight of the dolly pushes the metal up, eliminating that crease. Our fender flow, the curvature is that way, so I'm going to place the dolly that way. You put it this way, you're going to get those points digging in. You don't want that. It seems obvious, but hey, I got to bring it up. Step here, here, and already it's a lot better. We should maybe put the block over it. From that little bit, you can see these lighter spots. That's the slapper making contact with the metal. These darker spots are low. The key is not to hit the dolly and get that pinging sound, because that means you're stretching metal. What I want to do is just bring that metal up. This area around here has been stretched already. Not so much the center. The metal, when it hits, pulls in. So that stretched this area. And I'm constantly moving the dolly this way, back, depending where I'm hitting, just so I don't hit the dolly. I guess I should mention that you don't want to take the dolly and whack it out, because that creates more problems. And now I'm just finalizing. Okay, high there, high there. The rest of it is just about gone. As you can hear, I'm out of breath because this is hard work. That shiny spot was the corner of my dolly. Sometimes it happens. And that's how you remove dents out of sheet metal. Now I have to do what I did here, all the way along here, finalize that, a little bit around the eyebrow, and then this area right here. Just finalize that, smooth it out until it all looks like that. Now you might see some brighter spots and darker spots, and some guys, they'll throw a 36 grit or 40 grit onto their soft disc, onto their big grinder, and just smooth it out. Well, what they've done is just removed a whole lot of sheet metal, just thinned it out. That's not how you want to repair low spots. You want to work them out, bring them out, level them out until they look like that. Then you have consistent thickness of sheet metal all the way down. Didn't notice it before, but after I passed the sanding block over this, there's two spots right there that are low, and you saw me feeling up inside. There's actually a structure. You can see the line right there. So we're gonna have to address those bumps, probably pull them from the outside. We'll see. Not too concerned about that. That's small compared to everything else we're doing here. As you can see, past the sanding block, the fender's a little bit high, it has to come down. So that means pulling out one of those spacers. So we'll drop that down, that'll flush up with the door. But overall, the gap, check it out, all the way down is consistent till we get to the rocker. And then we'll have to pick the truck up because there's not much room to crawl around underneath. I have to investigate to see why all that is the way it is. It's an integral part of the cab structure. You see, the floor comes down, or the step comes down and around. Floor, I guess you can call it. Floor, step, step, floor. All right, so it's been a long couple days. So as you can see, we have a little bit of funny business happening here. I might be able to get in from the inside, tighten it up. We'll see. But right now I'm focused on the main gap as well as flushing it up. This feature was recreated, lining up really nice. There's a low spot here, so we're gonna have to come in and work that out. Coming up around the top, again, feature lines up, and I was working on running this line in nice and consistent. I had to add a little bit to the top of the door because it came down, clean up the corner, nice consistent gap all the way through. A couple of spot welds there have to be dressed. Aside from that, it's a whole heck of a lot better than it was. Front fender, I've been working out this huge crease that was in here, and somebody, you can see, has taken a grinder, not me because the primer is still there. They usually, well, that was the way they did a repair. Take a grinder, grind it, rough it up, create a texture to it, and just smooth on the Bondo. Which, you know, if it's a workhorse, not a show truck back then, you have to realize that. It made it look good, kept it running. Like a rock, right? So that's all just about there. A couple little things have to be cleaned up. I feel a bit of a wave. See, yeah, a low spot right there. So again, it takes time just to bring it up, level it, all that stuff. Driver's side, again, looking really pretty. And when they stamped these pieces, they didn't really trim up this drip rail to clean it up. And I'm just making sure that we have a consistent line all the way through and roll around the back. Top of this door was fine. Come around the back. Gap is lining up. Again, I haven't passed a sanding block over it, but you can see where I've had the straight edge, and it's pretty darn close all the way to the bottom. And again, that sill needs to be corrected, reshaped, reconfigured to match the fender and the back of the cab. You can see the corner sticking out. I've been working on this dent that was in the door. You figure, just punch it out from the inside. Well, check this out. Door structure goes all the way down to the bottom. So the only access is through the hole there or through the window. And if you say stick a 2x4 in the top, start prying on it, you're gonna bend this and it's gonna, not work out too well with the glass. So in this case, had the shrinking disc out. I just passed it over a number of times, and I would say we're 95% corrected. The rest of that might have to be massaged with something down inside, a bit of weight just to back it up, and I just push out and work the surrounding area down, and that'll correct that. Shrinking a disc can only do so much. It's not a miracle tool, and you have to be careful how to use it, because you can keep running a shrinking disc over a door like this over and over and over, and what does it do? It shrinks, and it'll suck this whole door in. Boom. Then you got a headache. Front gap, again, all the way down. Oh yeah, this has been fixed, and you see somebody actually tore the metal. Believe it or not, they ran into something and it tore it, so that's gonna have to be welded up. But this big crease that was here, that's gone. Front core support, we've bolted it down, added the proper spacers. That's really crucial, you have to make sure that everything is spaced accordingly and tight. There's inner fender bolts on the inside there, as well as bolts just inside there where I was showing you the structure earlier. There's a bolt there to allow this fender to come in and out. When this front was dipping down and that was bolted tight, these fenders actually swelled way the heck out. It was pushing out. So we brought the front up, fenders went in, everybody's happy. Now this hood, let's see how it looks. Nice and easy. The one thing I did do was, actually let me open that and show you, was readjust these hinges, because one was up, one was down. There's holes there with slots, and you can adjust the height of them. And with these particular hinges, they're brand new. You can see the gear cam system there. Look at the play in that. I'm not sure if original parts had that much play. In any case, I've pushed the hinge brackets all the way down as a first start, as a baseline to start with. Worst case, this hood won't close. It'll bind at the back in this position. So let's see what happens. Let's close the hood, see what happens. That's not too bad. We're against the bumper there. Nice consistent gap all the way through. A little bit snug right here. Let's see what's happening at the back. Well, there we have it. Nice space between the cowl and the hood. Maybe a little bit big, but we'll have a look at that in a second. I'm curious to see if something happens. The hood is a little bit high. It can probably come down a little bit. Oh, look at that. It actually rocks. When I push this down, that corner comes up. This hood's been bent. So we have a nice gap right there in the location where I set the hinges. Let me set you up on the tripod. I'll explain what happens in this area when we open the hood. Just don't stick your fingers in there. Hood's all the way down, right? So as I pick it up, you see how it goes back a little bit? Right there? If we tighten this gap up too much, we can come back a little bit, but if we tighten it up too much, it'll bind up against the cowl. Let me do that again. See, as I come back, that's the play on the hinges. Everything's tight, it's just the mechanism, and that actually comes back and up. We'll see what we can do about that. So this is up. When I push this down, this side came up. And I noticed earlier when the hood is open, there's a big crease in here. This is bent in a lot more than this one. So this hood has been hit. You can see it right in here. See the crease? So we're gonna have to pull that out. We could look at raising the front a little bit. That would bring that up, but the problem is our gap would get much wider as we go to the bottom. That's the highs and lows of body panel gapping. Okay, we're slowly working our way down to the back cab corner. This area up in here, just finished addressing that, blending into the door. This was done earlier, a little more finish work here. And before I get into that cab corner, I figured get this rocker established, gapped. The front was sitting at a good, let's see, 3/8 of an inch. It was way down. Now it's blending into the fender quite nicely. And at the back, it was up so high that when you close the door, it was actually bumping on the rocker, on the door step there. It's a rocker door step all in one. I'll show you what I'm talking about when I open the door. The reason we didn't do anything with the cab corner, I needed to address that to make sure the door's sitting in the right spot. Everything's perfect up there. It's perfect here. Nice consistent gap along the front. It's coming in quite well. Need to address this spot here. There's two dents. Let me get this door open. This area in here needs to be brought out. Two reasons. First, it doesn't match with the door, it dives in. Second, there is absolutely no space in here for a seal. It's so tight. And the cause of that is the stamping itself. They didn't allow enough step for the seal. So it's very, very shallow here. Nice at the top, nice all the way around. We're good. Good here now. Yeah, see the step and the rocker? This was, you can see the witness line right up in there. So this has to be cleaned up yet, but you can see how much I lowered it. And that involved rebending this corner, bringing it down, reshaping it, because this bend was way too high. This is a separate piece that comes in, yeah, right there, the spot welds, and it sits down on top of the jam flange. And now, if any water gets in, it can drain out. Initially, it would have collected in the corner there. So all that's been fixed. Now we're on to here. And what I'm going to do is this. So after a little cutting, we've now separated the skin from the flange, and we're going to just open that up to 1/4 inch and put a piece in all the way up. Now you see how this kind of dives in here too? We have to create a nice consistent curve all the way down that matches with the door. So I'm going to use a 1/4 inch nut to kind of help us set the gap. Just place it in there, just far enough that I can close the door. Ooh, it's almost right on there. You can come out a little bit more. I don't need that anymore. again. It's all about trial and error until you get the gap that you're happy with, right there. So from here to here, it's right on. From here down, needs to come out. That's fine. We're not going to get all this done in one shot. Let's put some witness lines here. It's perfect from there to there. And now we're going to need to create a wedge, a filler piece to go into here. See, if I had just taken and drilled out these welds and pulled this back, this surface would have been way too small, too narrow for a seal to be in. Now it's where it has to be. This has to come out a little bit here, and there's a little section right there that has to come out. We'll put a piece in here and then work our way up. Behold, it's a miracle. Not really, just the use of a video crossfade effect. We're down to the last 4 inches of strip to insert, a piece of 1/4 inch. Tacked every 3/4 of an inch all the way down on both sides. There's another strip down here that tapered down to almost nothing, and then welded all the way up. It's a really tedious process. You don't want to race this or rush this because you don't want this area here to warp. Let me cut one more piece, get it in, I'll bring you guys in. Okay guys, just want to show you the 58 Cameo pickup, where we are right now. She's just about done. We've worked out all those dents and creases that were in the original fenders, fitted the front fenders to the doors, gapped everything really nice all the way up and around. The top drip rail, back edge of the door, all the way down, and clean up those rockers. The hood had some creases in it from somebody putting something on top. That's been fixed. And the front, I guess I use it as a pusher because there was a bunch of dents there. So that's all corrected, smoothed out, and looking really good. Onto the driver's side, we had some damage in through here, and whoever fixed it took a grinder and probably with a very coarse disc cut into the metal. That's one thing. It's really challenging to fix something like that. There's a bunch of welds here, and if I keep grinding and trying to eliminate those deep gouges, the metal is going to get very, very thin. So this is where we're going to leave it. It's still the original thickness except for those spots there. That's the original primer, well, the primer that was brought to us. This crease here, same thing. We caught it on something and it gouged so harshly that actually cut into the metal. So the fender is really smooth, really straight. The reflections are looking great. It's just a little bit of a crease that we had to stop there. This area here, caught on something again, worked it all out. This cab door had a bit of a dent in there, and there was no real good access point except from the top. So we made up a special dolly that reached down all the way into there, pushed on the door skin a little bit, and just worked it with a hammer around that dolly, and it brought it out. Touch it up with a shrinking disc, called it a day. Gaps around this side coming in really sweet. Drip rails, laser beam straight, and we come down across the back here, same thing. It's turned out good. Made a little adjustment on the hood latch, so now it actually functions nicely. Can't do this with one hand. There's one, and there's two. So, opened up really well. There's going to be a seal across the back there that sits and holds the back of the hood up. 2 little bumpers that support it from riding. Now these are aftermarket repop hinges. There's a lot of play in them. So when we move the hood, you can hear the knocking, and that's caused by those teeth there slopping back and forth. So unless we add material to those teeth and reconfigure them, that's the way it's going to be. We created a shim place it under there, as well as move the holes, the mounting locations, to adjust the back gap. The thing is, we can't gap it too tight, and this is something that some of you might run into. With that style of hinge, when you go to open the hood, the back dives down. And if we close this gap too tight back here, it'll actually bind and chip the paint. We close the hood. It closes very nice. One shot. So there we go. Check out the hood to fender gaps. Perfect. And the reflection into the cowl from the hood, the way it should be. So to correct gaps like this, it is a lot of work. It's very tedious work, and you have to have a lot of patience. You can't rush it. Sometimes you just have to walk away for a period of time, come back to it, and tackle it again. Give us a thumbs up if you enjoyed this episode. Until next time, guys, thanks for watching. Take care. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this channel with your friends.